Blog Talk Radio.
The following broadcast is brought to you by the iGolf Sports Network. The Women of Golf show is sponsored by the iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips magazine. Here's more about our sponsors. iGolf Sports is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. And Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, including reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top teaching professionals, all designed to help you improve from tee to green. Good morning. Welcome to the Women of Golf, the #1 women's golf show around the world, with hosts Ted Odorico and Cindy Miller. Join them as they interview some of the best players from the Symetra, LPGA, and Legends Tour, and so many others, helping to elevate women's golf. So without further ado, here are your hosts, Ted and Cindy.
All right. Good morning, Cindy, and welcome.
Good morning, Ted. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Another great Tuesday morning. You and I get to spend a little bit of time together and talk about something that we both love. And we're going to start things off here in just a moment with another great discussion in the No BS zone. And then a little bit later on, we're going to be joined by world-renowned golf landscape painter and artist, Linda Hartough. She'll be joining us a little bit later on in the broadcast. But Cindy, what's new and exciting up in Buffalo? You still getting some snow, or?
Yes, we are. We're getting 1 to 3 today.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's
and we have not seen the ground for over a month.
Wow.
And we got like 3 feet.
Wow. Welcome
right?
to the snow belt.
Well, that's where we live.
Yeah. That's right. Well, time to make a permanent move, come down to Florida. We got lots of good sunny weather down here today. Going to be high as 71 or even more in some areas. Great to play some golf. All right. As I said, we're going to start with a great discussion as we have the last few weeks in the No BS zone. And that's where we talk about some interesting topics to help you guys out there improve your game. We started with a sort of a new you in 2021 on our first show this season. And then last week it was preparing for your first round of the season. And now we're going to talk about, Cindy, is some tips for keeping a good round going. Everybody gets out there and wants to know, what do I do to kind of keep things going? If I got a pretty good round going, what are some things to do? I've got 10 points here. We're not going to be able to get through them all, but we'll brush on some of them. And you might be surprised at some of the things that I've chosen, but you'll understand as I explain a little bit, and Cindy adds her thoughts in that as well. And I think one of the things Cindy's, and I put here, point number 1, not necessarily in any order, is some pre-round tips. I think before you actually get out in the round, there's things that you need to do. And I think one of the most important things that is really overlooked, I mean, lots of people go out and hit balls at the range or warm up that way. But one thing that they don't do is to ensure that they're nice and loose. They kind of stretch things out because a lot of times, depending on where you are, the muscles might be a little cold. You haven't, maybe done something, maybe you haven't played for a few weeks and you're getting out there and you want to have a good round. Well, you got to start off right from the get-go by stretching and making sure that you're good and loose and ready to play. Now, I know that you do some things with the folks that take your boot camp. Why don't you talk about some things that you do to make sure they get ready before they even get out in the golf course?
Well, yeah, like you said, you've got to loosen up. You got to stretch. You got to hit a couple balls. You don't have to hit 3 buckets, but you have to hit, 10 or 15. But what I would ask you to do is to stop and say, what's my focus for the day? And do I want to work on my tempo, something that's more right-brained? You can't really tee off and say, well, I'm going to shoot 72 today, because no one can control that. But what I would do is say, I'm going to commit to do my pre-shot routine on every shot. And then at the end of the round, rank yourself. How did I do? Did I do what I say I was going to do, right? and make sure you have the mindset that you know what you're working on and that it's something that you can control. Because, again, shooting a number, you can't control because we would all shoot 62 every day. But
right.
Make sure that you pick something that's very controllable by you that you can choose to focus on and pay attention to.
Yeah, that's a great point. And really, essentially what you're saying is, in addition to warming up and getting those muscles fired up and ready to go, is have a game plan. Now, it's okay to say, hey, I want to try to shoot par today. It's okay to have a goal or something, a target, if you will. But again, you have to be realistic and you have to focus on other things. And if that happens to, come to fruition by the end of the round, hey, then you've met that goal. But yeah, just to pick a number and say, okay, and then what often happens, and we've talked about this before, is people start, adding things up as they're going along, and they say, oh, I've only got, 6 strokes left, to hit that number, and I've got 4 holes left to play. There's no way I'm going to do it. So right away, they just start collapsing, and, the wheels fall off the bus. Tip number 2, Cindy, is get your body in balance. What I mean by that is really what you said is hit a few balls. There's some different things that you can do. I put one here. You could hit balls left-handed during, your warm-up session. Doing that, you can turn over a 7-iron, and I've done that before. And that just sort of helps to accomplish 2 things. You'll practice an awkward shot that you may save you a stroke when you get out there on the golf course. Maybe you get hit behind a tree and you can't hit normally, and you've got to turn around. If you've never practiced that shot, that's something that will help you a little bit. Really, since your golf swing is two-sided, you need to strengthen the golf muscles on both sides, because if you're a right-handed player, as an example, and you're swinging the same way all the time and you're not doing something to balance yourself out, then you start, getting a tightness developing on one side of your body because it's not really being worked the same way. The other thing, Cindy, and I want to get your thoughts on this, is I'm a firm believer of, not trying to, jump out of your shoes every time you swing the golf club. And what I mean by that is what I like to do is get people out there and, on the practice tee, of course, or range, and have them start off by swinging at about 50%, even a little bit less of what their full swing is, and then sort of inch their way up to a point where suddenly they're now jumping out of their shoes, and then I like them to back it off, because if they're coming out of their shoes, they're swinging too hard, they're not going to be in balance. What do you think?
Well, absolutely. I don't think you should ever go 110%. I think that
right.
Once you understand how to hit the ball properly and allow the club head to do the work and not you to slam it, you'll find that it's so much easier and the ball goes so much farther with less work. If you doubt what I say, Google LPGA Tour players with smooth swings and just go watch a few of them swing. You can stand on the driving range and be in awe. I mean, the first time I ever saw them, I was like, are you kidding me? Doesn't even look like they're trying.
Right.
Look how far the ball's going.
Right.
It's amazing. I would definitely make sure that you understand that going 120% you don't want to do.
Yeah, and that's a great point, too, that you raised about watching the tour players. And it's not that you want to emulate every movement of their swing, but you want to see how effortless it is. They're not, many of the players really don't swing at 100%. Many of them are swinging,
right.
It might only be swinging, in some cases, might only be swinging 80%, because they want that little bit extra on occasions when they might need to give it that little extra oomph, and they're still not really swinging at 100%. And you never see, or at least I have never seen, and I've watched a lot of events over the years, Cindy, I know you've played in a lot of events, I've never seen a tour player fall back on their back foot or stumble through their golf swing because they're swinging within balance. And that's key if you want to keep it.
I'm going to argue with you.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there have been. Go ahead.
Because Jack Nicklaus did it all the time. he would fall back after he followed through. So, no, people don't fall over and stumble, but the backlash and the whiplash of, it comes back after the fact that he went all the way through, and it's just momentum and the centrifugal force putting him back, if you will.
Yep. You're right. I stand corrected. You are right. Jack did do that. But you understand the premise of what I'm saying, though, is I think that some players, especially our amateur players, tend to get a little bit too aggressive on their swing, and they lose balance. They're not making a fluid swing. So, yeah, I would encourage to do as you suggested. And, if you have the ability to go to a tour event, that's even better because you can see it live. But if not, as you said, Google some of the LPGA tour players out there that have a good smooth swing. There's lots of them out there. And just watch the video. Don't worry about the positions and things like that, because that's something you can work on with your pro. But just watch how effortless it is. Many of them have, and same with the men. I mean, on the men's side, you've got people like Ernie Els and others out there that have a very smooth and effortless looking swing. And then you get, others that kind of look like they're chopping at the ball. They're still very effective, but it works for them. But, I agree. I think that's something very smart for people to do. All right, you're getting up to the first tee now. Again, you're getting ready to get out on the golf course. It looks like we might have lost a connection here.
I've got you now. Are you there? Ted? Ted?
How about now?
Hear you.
All right,
can
you hear me now? Yes, I can.
Yeah, what happened?
All right, I apologize. Yeah, somehow my mic got disconnected and I didn't realize it, and I could hear me, but I couldn't hear anything else. I apologize for that. So let me. God, it's Tuesday morning. What can I say? My apologies to everyone for that. That was my mistake. I must have hit something here. Okay, so basically what I was saying, Cindy, was on the first tee. You want to get up there. You want to identify the shape of the hole and get an idea of the lay of the land. And obviously the idea is you want to keep it out in the short grass, because pretty much all the way along both sides of the hole, you're going to have rough. You might have some trouble. You might even have some OB. So you want to really pay attention how you're going to start your round. And maybe you can offer some tips for what the folks can do on that first tee to ensure a good start to the round.
Well, I don't put any value on what hole it is or what swing it is, because if you do that, you can trip yourself up, in my opinion.
No, now I've lost Cindy. Now I've lost Cindy. We'll just wait for her to come back on. I apologize. We're having some technical issues this morning. So we'll just wait for Cindy to come back on and let her finish her thoughts. But this is one of the things, unfortunately, folks, with technology, that you run into issues from time to time like this, and we'll try to see if we can correct it for the rest of the show before our guest comes on. So anyways, one of the things that I really want to emphasize about keeping a good round going is it starts at the beginning. Once you get out there, you don't want to make a lot of changes. You don't want to start, if you arrive that day at the golf course and let's say you're slicing the ball a bit, that's not the time when you get out on the golf course to start making swing changes and things. Work with what you've got that particular day. Get out there. If you're slicing the ball a little bit or hooking the ball a little bit, that's okay. Adjust accordingly. And let me bring Cindy back on here. Let's try that. I lost you this time.
What the heck? I was going on and on and on.
Oh, I know.
I did a great job.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Go ahead real quick, Cindy, if you don't mind. Just maybe sort of cover over some of the points.
I don't put any value on any shot. The person that stands on the range and says, oh, this is my last ball, I got to make it a good one, they always choke. So I don't say, oh, I've got to start my round right. I just say, I'll look at the hole if I've never played. I'll say, okay, is it a dog leg left, dog leg right? Where do I want the ball to go? What's my target? And then I step behind the ball and I pick out a spot. And then, it's always a straight shot to that target. So that's what I do. Because I've learned that if I put more pressure on me, I just blow it and then I get ticked off.
Yeah, I agree. And what I was saying while I was waiting for you to come back on is, you want to set yourself up, with no matter what game you've brought to the course that day. And as I was mentioning just before you came back on, if you're slicing the ball a bit that day or hooking the ball a little bit that day, if you want to have a good round, the last thing you want to do is start monkeying around with your swing, changing grip, and so on and so forth when you get out in the golf course. Work with what you've got that particular day. If you're slicing a little bit, adjust accordingly. Aim a little bit differently than what you typically do, just to compensate for that. Don't start making swing changes and things in the middle of a round because you're just not going to be successful. The other thing too is, and I talk about here, simplifying chips and that, but I'm going to really expand that a little bit and really just because of our time here is the short game. Don't try to get fancy with a lot of your shots. If you're not somebody that hits the ball really long or very well, Cindy, but are pretty decent with your short game, instead of trying to go for the green and two, maybe a better route is to lay up. Pick a yardage that you're comfortable hitting, maybe a wedge with or something, and hit to that area, that distance, and set yourself up for a good third shot. Talk about that a little bit, about maybe some course management, if you will, while you're out on the golf course, things that you can do that are going to increase the chances of success and having a good round going.
I have to make a comment as well. I get students that come in and say, I want to work the ball. And I'm like, well, what do you shoot? 95. And then I'll say, you know what, it's kind of difficult to work the ball and hit the shot you need to. I would tell you the smartest move would be to hit it straight. Learn how to hit it fairly straight. And if you do that, you could break 90 real easy. So then I show people how to find shots. And what you're talking about right now, and most people don't break 90. And if you hit every green in one over regulation, which means a par 3, don't go for the green. Lay it up so you're 30 yards away. Knock that 30-yard wedge on and two-putt and make bogey. And if you bogey every hole, you just shot 90. So sometimes it's smarter to play smarter instead of go for things. Now, if you're a better player and you want to break 80, then what I would do is there are a couple of holes that really own you, right? And they horrify you, and you always make double or triple. And if so, how can you play that hole smarter? And maybe you don't tee off with a driver if it's really tight. Maybe you hit a 7-iron off the tee. And you might go, 7-iron, that's stupid. Well, no, it's not if you're in the middle of the fairway. Maybe you hit 3 7-irons on the green, and then you two-putt for bogey. So what you're saying is absolutely correct, and people need to be very aware of that.
Yeah, and this falls into this tip, making the right choice. The one thing that you do have control with on the golf course is not always the shots, depending on the level, but deciding which of the 14 clubs that you have in your bag that you're going to use for that round. That's a decision that only you can control. Which club are you going to use? The problem is making the right choice. And as Cindy, as you just pointed out, if you're playing a hole that causes you stress or anxiety because you never do well on it, because there's lots of trouble out there or whatever the case may be. It's just maybe a difficult tee shot. Why pull out your driver and exacerbate that anxiety? Pull out, as you suggest, maybe a 7-iron or some other club and keep it in play. And even if you come out, let's say it's a par 5, and even if you come out bogeying that par 5 as opposed to a triple bogey, then you're 2 shots better than you were. So you have to. It all boils down to what we said a minute ago, and that is your course management. Is what you do out in the golf course. You may not be able to control every single shot, again, depending on your level of play, but what you can control is the decisions that you make. And if you're making poor decisions, then you're not going to, especially if you start. I mean, and this is something that I've done. I don't know if you've ever done this in your play or not, Cindy, but this is something that I've done and I've tried to encourage students. Is I have what I call a 7th hole tip. So your round is basically a third complete, and maybe you've got a good round going. It's time for what I call a tension check, and that is to assess how you feel. Are your muscles kind of tightening up, and are you feeling really loose, or make sure that you're not suddenly ramping up again that anxiety, because a lot of times people say, "Wow, I got a great round going." And then they start playing all these scenarios in their mind. Well, I got that bad hole coming up here, and the next thing you know, that bad round that good round turns into a bad round. So I like to, as I'm going along through the round, and a 7 hole is a good measure. Maybe you want to do it after 5 holes or a different number, but kind of assess where you're at. Forget about the numbers, but how are you playing thus far? Are you being too aggressive and it's causing you strokes? Are you not being aggressive enough if you're a better player? So it's kind of like an assessment within that round. But again, I don't encourage people to make, massive swing changes or things like that, because then it's just going to fall apart. What do you think about doing something like that within the round? Kind of having a sort of a mini assessment. I'm not talking about taking a lot of time, but just sort of evaluating where you are thus far.
I don't want them to evaluate where they are thus far, because I don't want to change what they're doing unless they need it. So I would just, I'm nice and relaxed, and I'm paying attention to my pre-shot routine, and I'm planning my shots the way I need to. I might just, you're doing okay, because if we change it up, then it might lock them up, and I don't want them to get locked up.
Right, but good point. Yeah,
I would not add up, I'm playing really well today, I should keep doing what I'm doing, and then what's going to happen then,
Right.
Anyway, I would just, I'm going to stay focused. Am I focusing on what I promised myself I would do? And if I'm not, then it's time to change.
Yeah, I agree. I think you have to find, obviously, everybody's different, and that's what's great about this game is everybody's different, everybody's unique, and you have to find what works for you. And that's something that your golf professional can help you with. They can help you assess what your game is like on a good day and what it's like on a bad day, and help you handle those difficult situations. The final one that we're going to talk about real quick here is playing to your strengths, which is essentially what I'm saying. I'm a firm believer of always playing to your strengths. No matter how good a round is going, it's important not to deviate from what's working and try a hero shot as an example to go even lower. So, maybe you're not going to hit that target number that you shot for at the beginning of the round, but if you're playing well and what your strengths are, I think that's what you stick with. And I think that's kind of what you're saying. Is it not, Cindy, or am I misunderstanding? That basically, play to your strengths and not try to deviate mid-round or partway through the round. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and the more you do that, I would challenge people to really just try to hit it down the fairway, and with whatever club you're comfortable with. Because 99% of the people that come in, I got to hit my driver farther. Not really. You know, do you want to score better or do you want to be a long drive contest guy? You know, so I think sometimes their expectations and their goals and their realistic thoughts need a little tweaking. And if they're really committed to making that change, then it's really pretty easy to help you see your strengths. Everybody's good at something. And, you know, I don't hit it far, but I had to learn to get it up and down because I didn't hit it far and I didn't hit a lot of green. You know, and then, you know, you always want what you don't have. You wish you could hit it far and straight, but most people that hit it far hit it crooked.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to identify what your strengths are, and then, you know, realize that those are the gifts you got, and then use them to your benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think just very quickly, just to sort of summarize, I think, you know, keeping a good round going starts at the very beginning. Your pre-round, being properly prepared, understanding, knowing the course that you're playing. Even if you've never played it before, there's ways that you can get to know the course. Look at the yardages of each hole. You know, while you're having breakfast or something, go over the holes. You know, where you and your foursome are maybe having a bite to eat, and look at different things and understanding. You know, some of the challenges that you might be faced with, and adapt accordingly. You know, if you're not a strong player, you know, don't try these hero shots and say, well, I'm going to try to carry that creek that's running through the middle of the fairway that's 275 yards out there when you know you can't hit that far. So, you know, play smart. You know you're not going to be able to carry it, or even if it's 225, if you know you can't carry that with confidence, you may have to lay up. And, you know, get loose, you know, you know, I'm not saying you have to do an exercise regimen before you start, but loosen up, warm up, hit some shots. Again, as Cindy said, don't, you know, hit 3 buckets of balls before you get out there, but, you know, hit 10 or maybe even a dozen shots out there, and then hit the putting, practice putting surface and get out there and, you know, lag some putts to kind of gauge the speed of the greens that day. And, you know, make wise decisions when you're choosing the clubs that you have out there on the golf course. You know, you've got 14 in the bag. You may not be using every one of them that particular day, but use the clubs that you're most comfortable with, and don't try shots that you know that you aren't easily going to be able to accomplish. And then I think always play to your strengths. You know what your strengths are. You've been playing for a little bit of time, and you understand what works and what doesn't work. So that's what you want to play to, and don't be afraid to lay up. And if you feel that you've got a good round going, don't count. You know, obviously you got to keep track of the score, but don't focus on the score. Just focus on the shot at hand that you're dealing with that particular moment, and execute that shot. And then worry about the next one when you're ready to hit that shot. Don't worry about it, you know, 2 shots ahead, or don't worry about the hole that's coming up 4 holes down the road. Deal each shot by shot all the way around, and you'd be surprised at how much better you do. Great discussion. Again, we apologize. We had a little bit of a technical issue in the beginning, and my apologies for that. We both, I guess, we were too excited to talk, and we got cut off. But anyways, all right. We're very excited to welcome our very special guest this morning, Linda Hartough. She is a world-renowned golf landscape painter and artist. Her work is displayed in the permanent collections of such legendary clubs as Augusta National, Laurel Valley, Pinehurst, and Pine Valley. And also include in some personal collections of such golf notables as Jack Nicklaus, Raymond Floyd, Reese Jones, and in the collections of the USGA Museum in Far Hills, New Jersey, and Morris Museum of Art, as well as in Augusta, Georgia, as mentioned. So, Cindy, let's welcome our very special guest, Linda Hartough.
Good morning.
I'm glad to be here, very much so. Thank you.
We're thrilled.
Well, we're glad to have you, and hopefully we won't have any technical issues on this part of the show. But yeah, it happens every once in a while, and I think it just par for the course, as they say. Let me just ask a very sort of an open question, if you will. What led you to do what you do? what was your interest? I mean, obviously you're an artist and you're a painter and have other many talents. What was it about golf particularly and the landscapes of golf that drew you to it?
Well, to start with, it was Augusta National that really drew me to the genre. I was doing a lot of just landscape and all kinds of different subjects, but mostly commission stuff. So they commissioned me to do the 13th hole at Augusta in 1984, and that was really the first time that I sort of centered my artistic feelings on a golf course. And the first thing I noticed is that you see the landscape so much clearer because obviously the fairways and greens are cut close to the ground. And that was fascinating to me. It was like painting, almost like painting skin, basically. You saw these beautiful contours and the way the light fell across them, and it was very inspiring. Besides being landscape, it added that dimension which I had not experienced before.
Very interesting. Cindy, go ahead.
Different way of looking at it.
Yeah, for sure. Cindy, go ahead. You have some questions.
Were you always really good at this, or did you have to learn, how to perfect it?
I think that came with time, but to start with, I'd already been doing landscape, so I had to readjust the way I approached it, because especially starting at Augusta, because there was no rough there. It was like a complete oh, this is different. But as I started doing some of the UK courses in Scotland and Ireland, it was different. It was much more natural, like natural landscape. But I just grew to love it, and I love the contrast of the beautiful greens with the natural landscape as well.
So do you physically go to the property and just
Yes.
sit there?
Pretty much. I spend quite a bit of time at I may schedule a week, or if I go to Scotland, I'll schedule at least 2 weeks, a week at each course. Excuse me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
So you get to know it on a personal level too, because once you sort of learn the course, then you have to sort of figure out what its character is, and then you find the one scene that sort of sums that all up. So, and I also like it when you can sort of instantly say, "Oh, I know where that is," or "That's Shinnecock," or "That's St. Andrews." It's all important not only to the person who will appreciate it, but also to me. I want you to know where it is.
Right. My son would be able to do that. He would be able to tell you exactly where everything is because he's like a golf course crazy kid. But so what if you're there? Let's say we go to Augusta for a week.
Mhm.
Once you leave, how much longer does it take you to finish the project?
Oh, gosh. Well, once I get the photo reference down, and basically I do all of that myself, with the idea in mind that when I pick a scene, I'll live with it for a while in different lights, and then like morning light, afternoon light, whatever, and really thoroughly understand that scene. And I'll take like pictures of it at like 300 millimeter in sections, just like 20 shots for one scene, with overall shots too. So by the time I get home to the studio, I have everything, hopefully everything I need, including if there's critters that live on that hole, they get, photographed. They may not get in the painting, but if I can work them in, I do. It's like knowing that hole. But that that's one part of it. The other part is the actual studio time, and that could be 3 months or 6 months, depending on how large the painting is. They take a very long time to do. And they aren't always done right after I've been to the course, if I have to get material for maybe 2-3 years out. So
that's amazing.
While I'm there, I try to do everything I think I need.
Yeah, that's amazing. So let me you answered part of the question already, but so you obviously take a variety of different photos of different angles and things like that to sort of get an overall flavor, if you will. But when you actually get down and you decide, okay, this is what I want to paint. Let's just take an example, and you can use any example you want. Let's say you're doing a specific hole, maybe, again, hole 13 at Augusta. Where do you start in the painting? Like, how do you start it? Do you start, I'm going to work on the green first and work my way back a little bit, or I'm working in the background? Where do you, how, or the flag is the first thing I'm going to draw out here or paint out here? How do you start it? How do you begin the portrait?
Well, first off, I have to go over all the pictures, decide what I want to portray. What's the character, what's maybe the lighting, all the different elements. And that could take quite a while before I even begin to do anything on the canvas. I just have to get it very clear in my head exactly what I want to do with that. And that could take weeks sometimes. My husband used to say, well, anything done yet today? Nope. Still trying to digest everything. And then once I get to the point where I'm putting something on the canvas, I pretty much know exactly what it's going to look like. And then I put a little minimal drawing and go from there. I actually start with more distance than anything. In other words, the thing that's farthest away gets first and works towards the foreground. You can actually see that on my website, which is just hartough.com. If you go to the studio button and look at work in progress, you can see one from start to finish. So
it's interesting. It's always interesting when I speak with somebody like yourself who has that ability to sort of visualize what they want to put down on canvas. Have you ever had moments where you've gone through the process, you've got the photos, you're taken several weeks or whatever the case may be to kind of visualize the concept, and now you're putting it down on the canvas and get partway through it? Have you ever had moments where then you said, you know what? I don't know if that's what I want to do. Have you gotten partway through the process and putting some stuff down on canvas and then changed your mind and said, no, I think I want to approach this from a different view?
No. That's part of the preliminary, is figuring all that out and make sure I don't have that happen, because there's so much time involved in it. I don't want to go backwards.
So once you make your commitment, then that's it. You've committed to it. You've decided, and that's okay. Well, that's what I thought. I just was curious though, because when you look at somebody who's a writer, as an example, and a lot of times they'll get out there and they're writing the first their chapters, and you see them crumpling up papers and throwing it in the wastebasket because they didn't like something come out. So I don't envision you doing, because I know yours is a little more expensive.
No, I do that in my head basically. I'm digesting all the different photographs in my head before I start there, if that makes any sense. It's like sometimes you have to literally manipulate space, too, which makes it even more complicated. If, like, say, when I was painting the postage stamp, and, that hole, the little short par 3,
17.
And it's a beautiful scene, but I wanted the island of Erin in it. And if you're standing right on the tee looking at the green, you're not going to see Erin in the picture. So I just move it over. And I moved a few things around when I did Shinnecock because I wanted that clubhouse to stand out. I didn't want any, in other words, the feeling you have when you're at the course isn't from one position in the whole course, if that makes any sense. You're seeing it as a three-dimensional thing that you're moving around in, and there's certain elements that are memorable but aren't necessarily in the one aspect that you pick. So if I can, I manipulate things around to get all the things I want in there. And sometimes that's a trick.
Well, it obviously, certainly sounds to me like there's a lot of the hardest part. I mean, I would think just the painting itself would be hard, but it sounds to me the hardest part is actually the preparation, getting the vision in your mind, what you want to do. Would I be correct in saying that?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, once
I think
the painting starts, it's more like a technical thing, just, get it done. Fill in the
What's
holes.
the hardest part? Right. What's the hard? I mean, obviously you're and I've been on your website, and you're extremely talented. I mean, that would be putting it mildly. It would be an abomination if I was to try even a sample of what you do. It just would not come out anything close. So how do you, I mean, obviously you've developed talent, as you said earlier to Cindy, over time in that, but what's the hardest part of some of the work that you've done? I mean, obviously, the green grass, the fairway, and that part of it. Is it the, some of the minor details in the rough? Is it the trees? What's the hardest, what presents the most challenges, I guess the word I'm looking for, in your painting?
You mean an actual technically to paint? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Well, that's a good question. I'm not real sure, but sometimes, a lot of times I use skies that aren't there. In other words, when I'm photographing a course, I don't always get a wonderful sky, but I have a collection of wonderful skies. And matching the composition, sometimes the sky is such a major part of the composition, so I have to match a sky to the composition. And sometimes, especially if there's water in the scene, it gets difficult to try to figure out how that sky would reflect in the water when I don't actually have a photograph of it. You
have to kind of just, that's the difference, Cindy, between talent like Linda has and the rest of us, to be able to imagine, and put something in that's not there. That's incredible. Cindy, go ahead.
So I'm looking at your website right now on the 8th hole Pebble Beach view in the shop, and there's water there. And the sky is just beautiful. So is that an example of, holy cow, the sky didn't look like that, or did the sky look like that?
Well, let's see. I think on that one
it
actually did.
Oh,
I think it actually did. Once in a while I get lucky. Let's see, I'm checking
and
it
this
out right now. Yes, that one was actually there.
Cool. Was the spyglass sky there? Because that's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
The third hole?
I love that painting. Love it.
Holy cow.
Yes, that one was there. I got lucky.
How can you sell these? Do the courses approve that? They must, or you wouldn't be doing it.
Right. I have licenses with most of the, the primary courses. So, yeah.
That's great. And can you explain... so let's pick Augusta. I'm on the website. And there's a bunch of different options to pick from. So if I pick the 10th hole, because I am fine art paper, what's that mean?
Well, that means really high-quality rag paper, meaning it could be either a lithograph, in the case of the tent, there's a lithograph that I did. But mostly what we do now is G-clay, and the G-clay is either on fine watercolor paper or on canvas. That's pretty much what printing is today compared to 20 years ago. The printing technology has changed as well, and I've had to learn that as well because when I first did prints in the 80s, it was a dot etch, completely different from what we do now. And then it morphed into digital printing, and then eventually G-clay came along, which changed everything again. So it's been also another aspect of all this is learning all the technologies of printing and getting the best print you can.
Now, do you print them yourself?
Well, I have a guy that has been my print tech guy now for since about '94, and fortunately he's still in business, and he knows my work really well. He knows how to do the digital capture is the most important thing. To get that right.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And because my paintings have a lot of texture to them, that's a super important part because you don't want what they call specular highlights to ruin the whole image from a textured painting. So he has a way of lighting it that shows the texture but doesn't interfere with the quality of the image.
Wow.
He's a genius. I mean, he and I work real well together, so I'm hoping that'll continue forever.
Yeah, that's good to have a good relationship like that you complement one another in being able to do that. Let me ask you, there's some questions I'm not going to ask today because you and I are going to get together Thursday night and get into a little bit more. So I'm saving some of the questions for Thursday evening. But I know you've done, and we'll talk about that at that time about some of the collections and that for Mr. Nicholas and some of the others and that. But what I want to ask you is, you looking at your body of work, you've done so many very famous holes, very famous courses. Is there something that you haven't done that you would really like to do, but maybe haven't necessarily been commissioned yet? Is there something out there, a course or what have you, that you would really want to do, but maybe haven't taken, or maybe you're in the process? Give us some examples of ones that you've sort of scouted out or come across that you'd love to do.
Well, Cypress Point is one, for sure. Some of the courses in Scotland, when you're traveling in a country, you visit a lot. I visit a lot of courses, whether I'm going to paint them or not. Sometimes, just if they're notable or something about them. So I have a lot of photographs of courses that I have not painted. I mean, North Berwick, I was fascinated with that, but I've not painted it. It's just, I can only do 3 or 4 paintings at the max a year anyway. And of course, now later in my career, I'm more or less wanting to do commission stuff more than speculative things. So I've been concentrating more on that. For all those years, I did mostly tournament courses, like Augusta and all the U.S. Opens for 25 years and the British Open, that whole rotation in the 90s. That took a lot of time. I didn't have much time to do anything else but. And then when you're doing those things, you're also having to do the prints. I always add another month on the schedule for just getting the prints done, signed, packaged, whatever, ready to sell. It's just a long process for one image.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is I think people don't appreciate what goes into, from the preparation to the actual commissioning, the painting and sort of doing all of the other details in between, and then getting it ready to present to whomever. It's a lengthy process, and it takes a lot of talent.
I used to go to the actual tournaments and sell at the merchandise tent every year. Augusta whole 9-10 days, and then U.S. Open was 9-10 days. Just to be there on site to do what you had to do. So all that's a lot of time.
Yeah, exactly. How long? Something is always curious because I guess it depends. When you're actually, painting the landscape. You've got all your stuff laid out there. You're doing it. Typically, on average, how long during a session? Because obviously you're not painting it in one day; it's over a period of time. How long do you typically spend, in front of the canvas actually painting before you say to yourself, my arm's getting a little tired or my back's a little sore? Is it a few hours a day? Maybe is it a few days in a row and then you take a break? What's typically kind of been your process?
Yeah, it's kind of a combination of that, but it used to be when I was on really tight schedules, especially when you have a tournament, you've got a very definite schedule. I would work 12 hours or more. Work late into the night sometimes, because I like to work in the painting wet. I mean, I don't go over an area after it's sort of been done, if that makes any sense. And it sometimes I know, life happens too. I can't not do anything else, though sometimes I wish I could. You have to do other things. You have to go to the grocery store, manage lots of different things. Plus I have the business and the website and employees, and so I have to schedule how much part of the painting I can get done in that particular time period. So it might be I might get 2 inches done,
Right.
Because that's all the time I'm going to have for that day. And if you're doing a painting like St. Andrews, you're lucky if you get 2 inches done a day. Because you're painting the town. You're painting an entire town. So it's a very slow process to get through that town.
What's been the quickest turnaround? Obviously, you mentioned a few moments ago, you said that, sometimes you might get under the gun where you've got to get – what's been – maybe give us an example of the quickest turnaround from when you were commissioned to do something that you were really under the gun and said, I've got to get this done by, next Thursday or something as an example. I know that's a bit of a stretch, but what was the quickest turnaround that you've had to do for a commission piece from start to finish?
I can't think of a particular one, but I'd say 3 months is pretty much, that's about it. Unless I'm doing a really tiny little painting, but mostly I don't. I do small paintings, but usually those were more speculative paintings. They weren't commissioned to be that small. And I could do them in 30 days, I'd say. But the bigger ones, I really can't get done any quicker than maybe 2 to 3 months.
That's incredible. Even 2 to 3 months. I mean, I wouldn't even have a clue. I wouldn't have had the flag stick drawn or sketched in or prepared in 2 to 3 months. Based on what I've seen you do, so that's pretty impressive. Well, Linda, I know our time is a little bit shorter this morning, but you and I are going to have a little bit more time. As I said, this Thursday, Linda's going to be joining me on my other show, Golf Talk Live, on Thursday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern. So I'm looking forward. We're going to unpack a little bit more. We're going to, believe it or not, I've got more questions to ask, but we appreciate you taking time. Yeah, we do. Yeah, believe me. we appreciate you taking time this morning and spending it with Cindy and I and sharing just a little bit about what you do. And as I said, we'll talk more on Thursday. But thank you very much, Linda, for sharing some time with us this morning.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, Linda Hartough, world-renowned golf landscape painter or artist. Really interesting, Cindy, to listen to her, talk about the process. I mean, forget the actual painting, but the process of what goes into getting it ready. I mean, she's not just plunking the canvas down and having at it. I mean, it's a process. It's creating the vision. I mean, listen, I used to think I had a lot of patience. There is no way in heck.
Not so much.
I mean, you know what I mean?
God bless her.
I mean, I
couldn't do it.
Yeah, if I take more than 5 minutes to decide what I'm going to eat for breakfast,
either.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, I used to doodle or as they say, or sketch a little bit when I was younger, and I was a little bit creative, but nothing to the caliber of this. But yeah, it's interesting, and I've been on the website, as I know you have, and she does do some incredibly beautiful work. I mean, it's just breathtaking to see the talent that this woman has, and it's no wonder that she's had the opportunity to provide to the collections of some of the not just great players, but people in the industry, and I'm sure some private folks as well that she's provided to, and it's very easy when you look at her website. So if you go to Hartough, and it's spelled HARTOUGH.com, for those of you listening to the program, if you go there, you can see a good body of work of what what we talked about this morning. I know you can't see it here on the show on the Women of Golf, but if you go to her website, hartough.com, you'll see exactly what some of the things we were talking about this morning. And I shudder to think the cost of some of those paintings. You know what I mean? I mean, they're certainly
there's
sure
one
well worth
right here that's $225.
Oh, really? Wow, that's
all the way up to $2,500. But yeah, but holy cow!
Well,
detail, unbelievable.
Yeah,
she's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, when you first look at them at a quick glance, you almost think you're looking at literally a photograph.
You do.
And then when you examine a little bit closer and you realize, no, heck, this is a painting. I mean, it's just amazing. Now, obviously, these are digital images of the painting, but still, when you look at it a little bit closer and you start to see, as you said, the details. I mean, whether it's Augusta National, I mean, this stuff is spot on. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. All right, that's all the time we've got for everybody this morning. And again, our apologies for a little bit of mishap earlier. I take full responsibility for that, but we appreciate you joining Cindy and I this morning on the Women of Golf, and we will look forward to seeing you back here next week with another great guest and more things to talk about golf. Have a great week, everybody. God bless, and thank you for joining us this morning on the Women of Golf. Thanks very much, Cindy.
Thanks, Ted. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed listening to this week's Women of Golf show. Ted and Cindy wish to thank this week's special guests. Remember to join them every Tuesday from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern here on the iGolf Sports Network, or on any of these social media platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, CastBox, TalkStream Live, and of course Spotify. To get updates on the show, you can follow the Women of Golf's Facebook page at www.facebook.com/Women of Golf. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.